Although cell phones and computers have us exchanging information like mad. And now, researchers are using that same technology to try to connect with the animal world. Todd Southgate reports.
Dr. Dolittle is perhaps the best-known example of our wish to talk to the animals.
I speak over 2,000 languages, including Dodo and Unicorn.
But it's true. A man can talk to the animals.
The film was pure fantasy, but fiction is slowly becoming fact. And to talk to animals, we're bringing them into our wired world.
Killer whales are thought to be one of the most intelligent creatures living on this planet, but do they communicate? And if so, how complex is their language? Well, the answer to those questions may be found in the fact that here in British Columbia, killer whales have their own cell phone account.
John Ford has been studying killer whales all his life. Now they're just a phone call away. John and his colleagues are installing underwater microphones off the coast of British Columbia.
Right now, these are the two locations, Robson Bight and Port Moody. And we hope ultimately to have about 10 of these systems.
Whale Link was designed by the BC Institute of Technology. The free cellular time comes from the local phone company. Whenever whales pass the site, their sounds are automatically picked up and sent to John's office, where they are recorded and analyzed.
And so what this is called a spectrograph, and it's in real time. So as we're listening to this group of killer whales, for example, we can actually look at the individual call types that are appearing. And so in a way, the call type is the carrier of the information, and that carrier tells me what pod it is that animal is from, and slight changes in the standard format tell me about that animal's emotional state or its mood at the time. You can't really listen. Our ears aren't good enough to detect the kind of variety and make sense of all the different sounds that we hear. So we need to be able to tease them apart with our, the kind of technology that exists today. It's really helping.
Georgie, come here. You want to come in?
Suzanne McDonald is an animal behavioralist at York University who works with the Metro Toronto Zoo. Suzanne is also going high-tech in her quest to listen in on the animal world. Her subjects are marmosets, and they're not shy.
So have you gotten any closer to understanding what they say using technology?
Well, we're learning that brats, little monkeys like this, emit sounds that we didn't know existed before. And they communicate at such high frequencies, and bats and other animals are like that too. We didn't even know that they actually were saying anything until we had the technology to say, holy cow, they're talking, we just couldn't hear them.
Suzanne and her research assistant Jill are using their equipment to find out what marmosets say to each other.
Well, these calls are made as contact calls so that family members can be in contact with one another.
So how much can technology teach us about animal communications? Is it possible that through technology we may be able to one day talk with animals? Well, here at the National Zoo in Washington, an exhibit has been set up that, among other things, tries to answer those questions. Come meet a young Dr. Dolittle.
Casey, you're doing a good job. You're motivated.
Rob Shoemaker is a primate researcher at the National Zoo in Washington.
Okay, Casey, where's that right answer?
He's working with Azy, a 250-pound orangutan, teaching him to communicate to people by using a computer.
Ready? Where's that right answer? Good. Excellent. Good job.
Now, what kind of a vocabulary do they have right now, and where do you see this going?
Azy, for example, has about 5 different symbols that he uses, 4 different foods, and the symbol for cup, which you saw. I'm not including the function keys on the computer that he uses, and I'm not including the symbols for correct and incorrect, because I haven't tested for that. If I do include those, it would jump up to, say, maybe 9.
Good. Excellent. Rob hopes to teach the hairy student enough symbols so that in the future, Azy will create sentences.
So would I be going out on a limb to suggest that maybe one day you'll be able to sit down, or I could come in there and converse with Azy?
Well, down the road, I think we would really like to be able to invite visitors to pose interesting questions or to be involved in some kind of dialogue with the orangutans.
But don't animals have their own way of thinking? Should we now expect them to conform to our way, through our machines? There are those who argue having an animal communicate through technology designed by humans incorporating human language and human thought is missing the point. 4 years ago, a lowland gorilla here at the Metro Toronto Zoo was introduced to the computer for the purposes of interspecies communication. However, the great ape wasn't impressed.
She got a stick, she grabbed the back of it, yanked it across a concrete floor, much to my chagrin, and ripped the cord off the back and then started winging it around the exhibits.
So Suzanne tried with the Marmosets.
I tried to bring in a computer with a touch screen that I could start having them communicate with me through technology, and it just didn't work. They climbed on the computer, they peed on the computer, they just did everything but realize the computer was a way to communicate. So you can't, again, impose human values on non-human species.
Did it realign what you thought about the use of technology in animals at all?
Well, yes, because I had thought in my naive way that they would think was the greatest thing since sliced bread, and they would sit down, immediately start touching the screen, and provide me with years worth of fascinating data. But it just was not to be. So you have to let the animals tell you what they want to do, and they didn't want to do that.
Okay.
Maybe because technology is our tool, not theirs.
How about you get it right this time?
So will Azzy actually be able to communicate and share ideas through his computer? Or is he merely being trained to interact with it?
It's clearly different than simple conditioning, clearly different than some kind of elaborate training. I can help them, I can teach them, but there's a point where they have to take it and go on their own with it, and they're doing that. Really, I think we've blended what works for them and what works for me, and we've kind of have a happy medium. I mean, we really have done this together, and there's things we've changed about the software because the orangutans don't really like it or it doesn't work.
I guess what everybody just really wants to know is, will I be able to strike up a conversation, maybe through a computer, and talk to a whale one day, or a monkey, or another species?
Well, maybe. You know, and at the risk of being written off as a boring conservative zoologist, I sort of believe that at this stage anyway, whales talk to whales and people talk to people, and it may well be quite a while before we'll talk to each other in a way that really has a lot of significance at the level that many people would like it to take place.
So what would animals say if they could communicate with us? There's one gorilla some are convinced already does, Coco. She's part of a public service announcement that some argue is a hint at what animals might say.